of 45's economy is full of shit, basically, because he claims a whole bunch of shit that we know is not true. A portrait of a robust U.S. economy is sure to take center stage Tuesday night when 45 gives his third full of the shit State of the Union address. It is an economy that has proved solid and durable, yet hasn't fulfilled many of 45's promises that he campaigned on. 9 months before the election, the economy keeps growing steadily, if only modest. Unemployment is at a half-a-century low, and consumers, the lifeblood of the U.S. economy, continue to spend. Average pay is rising faster than when 45 took office 3 years ago, with the largest percentage gains now going to lower-wage workers. Some research has found that this trend, which began in 2015 before 45's re-election, partly reflects higher state minimum wages. Economists warn, though, that the U.S. expansion, now in its record-long 11th year, faces an array of threats. Most immediately, China's viral outbreak has paralyzed business. With the world's second-largest economy, Starbucks and Apple have closed stores in China, airlines have canceled flights, and companies like General Motors have halted their production rate there. All of that could shave 0.5 percentage point of annual growth in the first quarter. Goldman Sachs economists forecast, though they expect the slowdown to be offset by a rebound in the second quarter. Boeing's decision to halt production of its 737 MAX should also weaken growth in the first 6 months of the year. America's manufacturing sector is struggling, a reflection of 45's trade conflict. High corporate debt levels have sparked concern. Some analysts also worry that the Federal Reserve's ultra-low interest rates have helped feed risky bubbles in stocks or other assets. And leading Democratic presidential candidates, especially Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, have built their campaign on unseating 45 around the message that the economy remains rife with inequality, with many workers struggling to afford college, housing, or health care. 45 is unlikely on Tuesday night to let any such doubts temper his standard message that under his stewardship the economy is thriving, which it really isn't. Unemployment is falling, the stock market is roaring, and that the best days are ahead. I'm proud to declare that the United States is in the midst of an economic boom, which it really isn't. And he claims that the economy was in a boom, the likes of which the world has never seen before. 45 said last month in his full of shit speech in Davos, Switzerland. America is thriving, America is flourishing, and yes, America is winning like never before, which it really isn't. Yet what 45 calls an unprecedented boom is by many measures not all that different from the solid economy that he inherited from Obama back in 2017. Economic growth was 2.3% in 2019, matching the average year pace since the Great Recession ended a decade ago in the first year of Obama's 8-year presidency. During the 2016 campaign, 45 boasted that his tax cut plan would boost annual growth to 4.4% a year, a brisk pace not seen since the late 1990s. Instead, 45, along with Obama, is one of only two squatters since World War II not to have presided over a year of at least 3% of growth, and few economists think that the economy will hit that target year. Most analysts do think 45's tax plan helped accelerate growth, which it didn't, just not the way he promised. The 45 tax cuts were a sugar high that just juiced the economy temporarily, said Ryan Sweet, an economist at Moody Analytics. It put more money in American pockets, boosting consumer spending. The economy grew damn near 3% in 2018, a healthy pace through the same year as in 2015, just a year before 45 got elected. Technically, he wasn't really elected anyway, because the joke of electoral college put him in, and he technically didn't win the popular vote or win any other votes. The administration had vowed, though, that the tax cuts would do more than just encourage Americans to shop more. The squatter's top economist had said that the tax cuts would accelerate corporate investment in machinery, computers, and plants and office towers. All the new equipment would make more workers more efficient, the argument went, thereby boosting productivity, the amount of output for each hour worked. Greater productivity is one of the two main drivers of growth. The other is an increase in the number of U.S. workers. Both have slowed in the past decade. Most economists partly blame 45's trade wars, particularly with China. The trade conflicts have left American companies much less certain about the economic outlook and reluctant to expand and invest even more. Business investment shrank in the final 3 quarters of last year. Nor have 45's businesses and tax cuts and nor have 45's business tax cuts and deregulation made the economy more dynamic. The growth of new companies has remained anemic since the 2008 downturn. Larger businesses continue to dominate many industries, from technology to retail to finance. All this is occurring despite significant stimulus. The 45 has assailed Fed Chairman Jerome Powell for not cutting rates more, though the Fed's benchmark rate is now in a range of just 1.5% to 1.75%, a very low level historically and one that is considered stimulative. And increased federal spending has also helped support the economy. The Congressional Budget Office last week projected that the government's deficit will top $1 trillion annually for the next decade. The accelerator is on the floor, but the vehicle is now moving surprisingly slow. Larry Summers, Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton and top economic advisor Obama, said early in January. 45 has also recently highlighted what he calls a blue-collar boom, pointing to solid wage gains for lower-paid workers and healthy hiring in construction and manufacturing. But manufacturing jobs barely grew last year as factories hunkered down in the midst of the trade wars, and since 45's inauguration, manufacturing jobs have grown more slowly than overall employment has. Ernie Goss, an economics professor at Creighton University in Nebraska, said that the Midwest's job growth has amounted to only just about 3/4 of the national pace since 45 took office. Farmers have also suffered from this trade war, he said, as retaliatory tariffs by China have clobbered the exports of soybeans and other commodities. That in turn has hurt manufacturers of farm equipment, including the John Deere and Caterpillar tractors. Everyone says the economy is going great, going great, but that is everything except agriculture and manufacturing, Goss said. What's more, most campaign battleground states in the Midwest, such as Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Wisconsin, have lost many factory jobs in the past year. Most manufacturing job growth under 45 squadancy has occurred in southern and western states, said Dean Baker, senior economist at the Liberal Center for Economic and Policy Research. With fewer union members in those states, those factory jobs generally pay less, and in fact, manufacturing jobs, once a bulwark of the post-war middle class, now pay less on average than private sector jobs overall. Still, despite modest growth, the record economic expansion has endured under 45. There is also evidence that its durability has in recent years finally started to benefit a broader swath of Americans. More people have come off the sidelines and found jobs, defying most economics reductions. The proportion of Americans in their prime working age years are between the ages of 25 and 54 who are employed is now higher than before the Great Recession. Last year, wages rose nearly 5% for the poorest, 1/4 of Americans, far more than for the richest fourth, whose pay rose just 3%, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. Still, richer Americans hold a far greater portion of the nation's wealth, at the top 10%, owning nearly 85% of the value of all stocks. The moderate pace of growth has meant that so far the economy isn't showing evident signs of excess akin to the housing bubble that led to the financial meltdown. This expansion has been slow and steady, but it could run for a few more years, Sweet said. There's no reason that it needs to die now. Sometimes slow and steady does win the race. Technocrats think it's going to just